Valleys of the World, written by Edward Allen Kurtz.
Contents at a glance.
What is a valley? A valley is a low area of land between two higher parts like hills, mountains, or mountain ranges. It is longer than it is wide. It is made up of several parts. The head is the beginning of the valley. The sides run up the hills or mountains, and the floor is the base or bottom of the valley. A stream or river often flows through a valley. This is why people have chosen to live in valleys for thousands of years. Valleys often have fresh water and good soil. Let's learn more about valleys. Other words for valleys. A valley is either in the shape of a U or V. Other words for a valley are dale and hollow. If a river runs through it, a valley is often called a vale. If the valley is small and is mostly a forest, it is called a dell. In Scotland, a dell is called a glen. In Scotland, a strath is a wide, flat valley with a river running through it. In the Appalachian Mountains in the United States, a small valley that is closed on one end or on both ends is called a mountain cove. A combe or combe is a deep, narrow valley. How valleys are formed. There are several ways in which valleys can be formed. Glacial valleys were formed when glaciers moved across the landscapes and created high places and low places. Rift valleys were formed by Earth's tectonic plates. The Earth's crust is made up of these plates that are like pieces of a giant jigsaw puzzle. They move, and sometimes this creates rift valleys. Many valleys have rivers or streams running through them. Over a period of thousands or millions of years, the moving water wears down the soil and rocks through erosion. Where valleys are found. Valleys are found in many places all over the world. Valleys that are found in mountains often have steep sides. Valleys found in lower hills are usually wider, and the sides are not as steep. Some valleys are very flat and almost in the shape of a saucer. These valleys usually have a river running through them. The water that comes down from the sides brings nutrients, so these flat valleys are good for agriculture. Valleys made by glaciers are found in many places like Switzerland. These valleys are in the shape of a U. River valleys. Valleys that are formed entirely by the flow of a river are called river valleys, and they are usually in the shape of a V. The shape of the valley depends on the river. Some rivers start at a high elevation and flow to a low elevation. These rivers run fast, so they make steep valley walls. If the slope of the river is not as steep, then the valley walls will not be as steep. As it reaches the end of the valley, there is a lot of dirt and rocks at the bottom of the river. Glacial valleys. Glacial valleys are formed by the slow movement of glaciers. These valleys usually start in the shape of a V, but the glaciers change them into the shape of a U. This is because of the weight of a glacier. A glacier is very heavy, so it drags soil and rocks underneath it as it slowly moves across the land through gravity. When the glacier finally disappears, the soil and rocks remain on the valley floor. The walls of the valley are steep, and the floor of the valley is wide and flat. A stream or river often flows through a glacial valley. Hanging valleys. A hanging valley is a very unusual kind of valley. It is a small valley that sits higher than the larger main valley below it and to one side of the main valley. This kind of valley is formed by glaciers. The bigger valley is formed by a big glacier and has very steep walls. At the same time, a smaller valley is formed by a smaller glacier that flows into the bigger glacier. This means that the hanging valley and the main valley are both in the shape of a U. Waterfalls often flow out of the upper hanging valley and fall down to the main valley. Valleys and people. People have chosen valleys to settle in throughout history. A river valley is an especially good kind of valley for people to live in for several reasons. The river provides a source of water. The soil is good for raising crops because of the nutrients brought down by streams from the mountains. And the valley floor is flat, which is good for planting. Rivers also provide food like fish and other kinds of river animals. The only danger comes when there are heavy rains and the river overflows its banks and causes flooding. Famous valleys. Death Valley. Death Valley is a desert valley in California in the United States. It is part of the Mojave Desert, which is the driest, hottest, and lowest area on the continent of North America. Part of Death Valley sits at 282 feet below sea level. It holds the record for the highest air temperature ever recorded, 134 degrees Fahrenheit. There is very little rain here. There have been several years when there has been no rain at all. This is how Death Valley got its name. What kinds of animals could live here? Desert tortoises, lizards, roadrunners, and vultures. Famous valleys. The Great Rift Valley. The Great Rift Valley is one of the biggest valleys in the world. It is about 3,700 miles long and is located in eastern Africa. This huge valley is divided into two parts. The Western Rift is also called the Albertine Rift. In it sits one of the deepest lakes in the world. Lake Tanganyika is 4,820 feet deep. The second part is called the East African Rift or the Gregory Rift. This rift is the home of Mount Kilimanjaro, one of the most famous mountains in the world. Many African animals like elephants live in this valley. Famous valleys. Lauterbrunnen Valley. Lauterbrunnen Valley is located in Switzerland, and people from all over the world come to visit this popular place. It has high valley walls, lakes, forests, pastures, villages, and several amazing waterfalls. Staubach Falls is one of the highest waterfalls in Europe. It is nearly 1,000 feet high and is very close to the village of Lauterbrunnen. From this valley, you can see two of the highest mountains in the Alps, the Jungfrau and the Eiger. Many people take a train to go up to these mountains to see the glaciers and the views. Famous valleys. The Valley of Geysers. The Valley of Geysers is found on the Kamchatka Peninsula, which is located in the far eastern area of Russia on the Pacific Ocean. The second largest collection of geysers in the world is found in this valley. Yellowstone National Park in the United States holds the record for the most number of geysers. The Valley of Geysers is nearly 4 miles long and has almost 100 geysers as well as many hot springs. There are volcanoes on this peninsula, and scientists have found that the temperatures underground can be as high as 482 degrees Fahrenheit. Famous valleys. The Valley of the Kings. The Valley of the Kings is a famous valley in Egypt where many tombs of ancient Egyptian pharaohs have been found. It is located across the Nile River from the city of Luxor. The valley is divided into two sections, the East Valley and the West Valley. Most of the tombs are found in the East Valley. There are 63 tombs, and some of them are very interesting to visit. People come from all over the world to see the paintings and hieroglyphics on the walls of the tombs. Hieroglyphics was the ancient Egyptian form of writing. Interesting facts. People choose to settle in valleys not only because of fresh water and good soil, but also because valleys offer some protection from strong winds and storms. Rivers are the main cause of erosion in valleys, but wind can also cause erosion and make valleys larger. Death Valley is the largest national park in the United States. It is made up of over 3 million acres. Some people use the word gorge to describe a valley that is very narrow and has high and steep walls. Silicon Valley refers to the Santa Clara Valley in California. It is famous for being the home to many computer technology companies. A pass is a word that is sometimes used for a valley that allows people to travel between two high mountains. Valleys found in flat areas of the world are usually the widest valleys in the world, like the Amazon Basin in South America, the Darling River Basin in Australia, the Danube in Europe, the Ganges River Valley in India, the Mississippi-Missouri Basin in North America, and the Nile River floodplain in Africa. Many people live in the valleys in Switzerland that were formed by glaciers. The Kali Gandaki River in Nepal forms the deepest valley in the world. Many scenes from the Star Wars movie were filmed in Death Valley. The pharaohs of ancient Egypt decided to build their tombs in the Valley of the Kings because they did not want people to rob their tombs. Napa Valley in Northern California in the United States is famous for its vineyards and wineries.